They say silence can drive a person mad. But for the chosen ones, silence is not an absence. It is an invitation. It is a sacred space, a doorway to power, purpose, and prophecy. I'm not just talking about sitting alone in a quiet room. I'm talking about the kind of solitude that cracks the soul open, the kind that strips you down to your essence, the kind of aloneness that doesn't ask who you are, but demands that you remember. For years, I wandered the world with a hunger I couldn't explain. I wasn't searching for people. I wasn't searching for love. I was searching for truth, and I didn't know it yet. But truth requires silence. Truth requires space. Truth requires isolation. It took the universe stripping away every distraction in my life to finally show me what I was truly made of. And if you are listening to this right now, you already know you're not like the others. You felt it in your bones. In the middle of a crowded room, you still felt alone. And that loneliness, it wasn't a curse. It was a calling. The world teaches us to fear being alone. It tells us that without others, we are nothing. But what if I told you that the greatest masters, prophets, visionaries, and mystics in history were all shaped in silence? Moses didn't hear the voice of God in a palace, he heard it alone on a mountain. Buddha didn't awaken in the middle of a festival, he awakened under a tree. In solitude. Jesus didn't face his deepest temptations in the company of friends, he faced them alone. In the desert. So why do we believe that our greatness will be forged in comfort and company? Let me tell you the truth. And the chosen ones are not born in crowds. They are born in caves. They are born in dark nights of the soul, when everything familiar is taken away and all that remains is the fire within. It is in this sacred loneliness that something miraculous begins to happen. A shift, a cracking open. The world you once knew starts to fade, and another realm, a deeper realm, begins to whisper. Have you ever noticed how the most powerful transformations never happen when you're distracted? They happen when everything is quiet, when you have no one left to impress, no one to perform for. Just you, your thoughts, and the divine. That's when the real work begins. And that's when the chosen ones start to hear what others cannot. In that void, in that silence, they receive visions, revelations, and clarity. Their gifts begin to emerge. Their purpose starts to crystallize. But let me be clear, it's not easy. This isn't a walk in the park. This is spiritual surgery. When you are truly alone, your demons rise. The ones you buried. The voices that tell you you're not enough. The pain you've avoided. They all come to the surface, demanding to be faced. And the chosen ones, unlike others, do not run. They stare those shadows down. They walk into the fire, and in doing so, they come out transformed. This transformation is not poetic fluff. It's real. It's visceral. And it's ancient. In almost every mystical tradition across the globe, the path to enlightenment, to mastery, begins with separation. The shamans of South America fast in isolation for days in the jungle to receive visions. The mystics of the desert traditions wander alone for weeks to encounter the presence of God. Even the alchemists of medieval Europe would retreat into solitude to perform their sacred inner work, transmuting the lead of their souls into gold. So why should it be different for you? If you've been wondering why you've lost friends, why people have walked out, why doors closed, why the universe pulled you away from everything you once held dear, this is your answer. You are being refined. You are in the fire, but not to be destroyed, to be awakened. People talk about superpowers as if they're reserved for comic books. But let me tell you, solitude unlocks gifts in the chosen ones that are more powerful than anything Hollywood can write. These aren't powers of flight or invisibility. These are powers of sight, of strength, of sensitivity, of spiritual command, powers that shift reality, powers that shape destiny. And here's the beautiful, terrifying truth: most people will never experience them. Not because they can't, but because they avoid the silence. They run from their own shadows. They distract themselves with noise, entertainment, validation. They are terrified of themselves. But not you. You are different. You have been called, and if you're hearing this, then consider this your confirmation. You are not crazy for choosing solitude. You are not broken for walking alone. You are not cursed because people misunderstand you. You are awakening in the stillness of solitude. A seed is planted, and that seed contains the blueprint of your purpose. A chosen one's solitude is not a grave, it's a womb, a space of incubation, a time where heaven meets earth inside your very being. You may feel like nothing is happening, like you've been forgotten. But the opposite is true. You are being prepared. Every tear you've cried in silence was a prayer. Every sleepless night was a vigil. Every moment you felt invisible. The divine saw you more clearly than ever. And while the world thinks you're just taking time alone, in the spirit realm you are being trained. Trained to hear differently. Trained to feel deeply. Trained to lead. The silence is shaping your sensitivity. The emptiness is clearing your vision. The loneliness is building your strength. And soon, very soon, the world will see what solitude was sculpting in the shadows. So the next time you sit in a room and feel that stillness pressing in, don't run. Close your eyes. Take a breath and listen, because solitude isn't punishing you. It's initiating you, and the powers you are about to unlock will change everything. There is a reason why the world misreads you. A reason why people call you cold, detached, distant. They don't understand what it means to have walked through fire and chosen not to scream. They don't realize what it costs to keep your face still when your soul is shaking. They have never been trained by solitude. But you have. And that's why you carry one of the rarest gifts the universe can offer: the ice head. This is not numbness. This is not indifference. This is a superpower forged in a place most would never survive: extended isolation. It is in that vast emotional desert, where no voices echo back, no comfort reaches in, and no hands hold you, that the mind begins its transformation. When you are left with nothing but your own thoughts and the brutal honesty of your emotions, you either unravel or you evolve. Chosen ones evolve. At first, the silence is unbearable. Your own mind becomes the loudest prison. The past replays on repeat. Your fears, your failures, every cruel word you ever heard, rising up like ghosts demanding to be acknowledged. There's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. But this is exactly where the ice head is born. Imagine a soldier who trains in snow and blizzard, not for the love of cold, but for the mastery over self. That's what solitude does to the chosen. It throws them into the storm, not to punish them, but to discipline their nervous system, to harden their emotional armor, and to sharpen their mental clarity until even chaos becomes irrelevant. When you have faced yourself over and over in the stillness, something happens. A switch flips, and what once hurt you begins to lose its grip. The things that used to trigger you now spy like shadows on a wall. Not because you no longer feel, but because you no longer react. This is the ice head. A mind that does not panic. A spirit that does not flinch. A soul that does not collapse under pressure. But let me be honest, people will misunderstand this power. They will call you heartless. They will accuse you of being too rational, too calm, too unmoved. They will say, "Why don't you care?" But you do care. You care so deeply that your care has taken on a different form. You care with precision, with discipline, with wisdom. You no longer throw yourself into emotional chaos just to prove you feel something. You no longer bleed just to show empathy. You have learned to stand still in the fire without burning. Think of Jesus in the desert. When offered power, wealth, and glory by the adversary, he didn't scream, didn't argue, didn't beg. He stood firm, quiet, clear. The world might see stillness as weakness, but in the spiritual realm, stillness is power. It is the ability to be unmoved by illusion. The ice head is not frozen, it is anchored. In modern society, where everyone is quick to react, quick to panic, and quick to speak, this kind of inner stillness is revolutionary. Most people have their buttons pushed daily. A rude comment can derail their day. A disagreement can ruin a relationship. But not the chosen. They've been through worse in silence. They've sat with their darkness long enough to befriend it. They've suffered without witnesses. And because of that, their center is not easily shaken. And let's be clear, this is not about suppressing emotions. It's about mastering them. The ice head knows how to feel every ounce of pain without becoming consumed by it. It knows how to acknowledge grief without drowning. It knows how to be aware of anger without letting it speak first. This is spiritual maturity, emotional sovereignty. It's the ability to rule your inner kingdom no matter what war is raging outside. I once met a woman, a healer from the Andes, who told me, "A river that floods cannot feed the land. But a river with banks becomes life itself." That is what the ice head does. It gives your emotions structure. It allows your energy to nourish your path instead of destroying it. And it's in solitude that those banks are formed. When no one is around to validate you, you learn to validate yourself. When no one is around to comfort you, you learn to become your own sanctuary. When everyone leaves, you become your own home. And in that space, your reactions change. You no longer need to be right. You no longer need to win arguments. You simply hold your peace, because you understand the cost of losing it. This power is subtle, but it is profound. It manifests when you remain composed in the face of insult, when you hold your silence in a room full of noise, when you choose presence over panic, and perhaps most powerfully, when you forgive without needing an apology because you've already made peace within. The ice head is what makes chosen ones appear untouchable. But underneath that icy surface is a heart that has burned for years. A heart that has known betrayal, abandonment, and despair, but still chose not to freeze over completely. It chose to hold warmth inside, but not let it spill recklessly. That's the difference. In moments when others crumble, the chosen remain. In crises that break others, they rise. Not because they are superhuman, but because they have trained in silence. They have cried prayers no one heard. They have whispered affirmations through clenched teeth. They have stared at walls and ceilings and felt the weight of eternity pressing in and they did not fold. And now, in the world, they move differently. They speak less, but their words cut deeper. They act less, but their actions ripple farther. They do not chase validation, for they have already been validated by the divine. They are not desperate to belong, for they have made peace with being set apart. So when someone calls you cold, smile quietly. They do not know the fire you had to survive to become this calm. They do not know the wars you fought inside to be this gentle. They do not know the price of your peace. You are not emotionally detached. You are emotionally refined. And this, beloved one, is your first superpower. The world may never applaud your restraint, but the heavens recognize it. And soon, the ones who mocked your stillness will come seeking your clarity. Because in a world on fire, it is the ice head that leads. And you were chosen to lead. There's something hauntingly beautiful about seeing the truth in a world that's built on illusion. The chosen ones walk among crowds, but they don't just see faces, they see masks. They hear words, but they feel what is left unsaid. And that, my friend, is no ordinary ability. That is the second superpower, the X-ray vision of the soul. You've probably felt it for years. That moment when someone smiled at you, but your gut twisted. When a room felt off before anyone spoke. When a friend swore they were fine, but you knew deep in your bones that they weren't. You didn't learn that from a book. You didn't pick that up from some course. That sensitivity was forged in solitude, where the noise of the world was stripped away, and all that remained was your raw perception. While most people develop their senses outward, sight, sound, speech, chosen ones develop the inward senses. You learned how to see through energy. You trained your spirit to listen to vibrations, to interpret frequencies. And this, over time, became X-ray vision, a kind of supernatural discernment that slices through the surface of things and exposes what lies beneath. This power doesn't come cheap. It's born from pain, from betrayal, from years of being lied to and gaslit until you had no choice but to tune into a deeper truth. When you've been hurt enough times, you stop believing what people say and start paying attention to what their soul is screaming. And once your eyes have been opened, they cannot be closed again. In solitude, you were forced to become an observer. You watched from the sidelines. You listened while others talked. You noticed things others missed, the hesitation in someone's voice, the change in their posture, the flicker of fear behind their confidence. You saw it all. And eventually, this constant observation became intuition. Then, intuition became insight. And insight became vision. This vision is not simply symbolic, it's spiritual. The ancients knew it by many names. In the mystical schools of Kabbalah, it was called Bina, the divine understanding. In the Vedic traditions, it was known as the third eye, the Ajna chakra activated through inner silence and discipline. In the Christian mystic lineage, it was discernment of spirits, the ability to see what is of God and what is not. The common thread, it's always the chosen who carry this gift, because only those who have walked through darkness can recognize the light. Let me share with you a sacred truth. Seeing beyond the surface is not a burden, it's a divine appointment. When Jesus walked the earth, he didn't just heal the sick, he exposed hearts. He saw through the Pharisees' robes and titles and called them whitewashed tombs, clean on the outside, but rotten within. He looked into the soul of the woman at the well and named her pain. He didn't need her to explain. He already knew. That's what X-ray vision does. It bypasses words and pierces directly into essence. And just like Jesus, the chosen ones today carry that same energy. You walk into a room and know who's hiding what. You feel when someone is lying, even if they've perfected the art of deception. You sense when someone's smile is a shield and when their silence is a scream. This isn't paranoia. This is perception. This is spiritual vision. And it's needed now more than ever. Because we live in a world addicted to appearance, a culture of filters and facades. People wear success like armor, hide insecurity behind laughter, and bury shame beneath polished words. But the chosen ones are not deceived. You've been through too much. You've looked too long into your own shadows not to recognize them in others. You've seen the masks fall. And that's why you now carry this unshakable discernment. But here's where it gets deep. X-ray vision isn't just for seeing others, it's also for seeing yourself. And that's where it began. Solitude stripped you bare. No mirrors, no applause, no distraction. Just you and your soul, facing each other without pretense. You learned to confront your own lies, your own wounds, your own patterns. And in doing so, you cleansed your perception. You cleared the fog that clouds most people's sight. The more honest you became with yourself, the clearer the world became. You no longer needed proof to trust your intuition. You no longer needed confirmation to believe what your spirit already knew. That's the power of the X-ray vision. It's not based on evidence. It's based on resonance. Something either aligns with your truth or it doesn't. And that, alone, is enough. This superpower protects you. It guides you. It reveals who to trust and who to walk away from. It's that quiet whisper that tells you, this is not for you, even when everyone else is celebrating. It's that sudden knowing that says, this person carries hidden pain, even if they appear successful. And most of all, it's the gift that allows you to recognize your tribe, not by appearance, but by energy. You see, when two chosen ones meet, there's an immediate knowing. No small talk needed, no performance, just an unspoken recognition. The frequencies match, the eyes recognize each other, the hearts sigh with relief, because finally someone sees as deeply as you do. I remember once meeting an old man in a monastery in the highlands of Tibet. He didn't speak a word of English, and I spoke no Tibetan. But when our eyes met, it was as if I had known him for lifetimes. There was a stillness in him, a depth that mirrored my own. And in that moment, I realized that true connection requires no language, only vision. That's what this gift is. The ability to see essence, to bypass the noise, to cut through the illusion, to look into someone's eyes and see their soul weeping. And because you see that pain, you offer something the world rarely gives: presence without judgment, understanding without explanation, compassion without condition. But beware, this power will make people uncomfortable. Some will hate you for seeing too much. Others will fear your insight. They will avoid your gaze because it feels like you can see the truth they are trying to hide. And they're right. You can. But do not let this discourage you. You were not given this vision to shame others. You were given it to guide, to heal, to protect. You are the lighthouse in the storm, the watchman on the wall, the seer in the temple. Your role is not to blend in, but to illuminate. not to be loud, but to be clear. You are here to see what others cannot and to gently awaken them to it, if and when they are ready. So don't dull your gift to make others comfortable. Don't question your knowing just because others doubt. Stand firm in your perception. Honor your intuition. It has taken years of inner work to develop this level of sight. It is sacred. The chosen ones do not just walk through the world, they scan it. They sense the vibrations, feel the emotional undercurrents, and intuit what is unsaid. They see the child behind the bully, the grief behind the rage, the love behind the fear. And in doing so, they become vessels of truth, mirrors for healing, instruments of grace. This is your second superpower, and it will grow sharper the more you honor it, the more you trust it, the more you protect the silence that birthed it. Because true vision is not just a matter of sight, it is a matter of soul, and the chosen ones were born to see in the dark, in a world intoxicated by noise, where chaos parades as progress and distraction is dressed up as connection. Clarity is nothing short of a miracle. And yet, for the chosen ones, it becomes not only a gift, but a weapon, a compass, a shield. This is the third superpower that emerges from solitude hyperclarity. It is the ability to see through the fog, to cut through confusion, and to recognize truth not just as an idea, but as a living presence. Most people wander through life reacting to stress, to emotion, to whatever news cycle or notification is screaming the loudest. They are driven by impulse, not intention. But the chosen move differently. They operate from a deeper center, one forged in quiet, sharpened by stillness. In solitude, they learn to stop reacting and begin discerning. They no longer act from panic, but from purpose. Hyperclarity is not simply intellectual. It is not just about making smart decisions. It is spiritual clarity, an inner knowing that transcends logic. It is the ability to hear the whisper of the divine in the midst of storm. And it begins, always, in silence. Think of Moses climbing Mount Sinai alone, leaving behind the noise of the people, the opinions of the crowd, the distractions of leadership. Up there, in isolation, he didn't just hear commandments, he received vision. He came back with more than stone tablets. He came back with a nation's direction. The same thing happens to chosen ones today. When the world becomes too loud, they are pulled away not to escape, but to recalibrate. In their solitude, they return to their internal altar. They sit in stillness until the dust of emotion settles, until the waters of the soul become clear. And from that still place, the answers begin to surface. This clarity often comes after chaos, after heartbreak, after betrayal, after everything breaks down. Because clarity isn't born in comfort. It's born in crisis. And it's in that crisis, when all the illusions shatter, that the chosen ones begin to see clearly for the first time. I remember once, in the aftermath of a devastating loss, sitting alone in an empty room, no lights, no noise, just the hum of my own breath. Everything in me wanted to escape, turn on the TV, call a friend, scroll endlessly. But something told me, stay, sit, be still. And so I did. Hour after hour, tear after tear, until the pain gave way to presence. And in that sacred silence, I heard it, a truth that cut through the noise of my suffering like lightning through fog. I knew what I had to do. I knew who I was becoming. That is hyperclarity. That is what solitude teaches you if you're willing to stay. For the chosen ones, This clarity becomes a lens through which they see the world. They no longer get caught in drama because they recognize patterns. They no longer chase meaningless pursuits because they know what truly matters. They have faced their own reflection so many times that deception no longer holds power over them. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being precise. The chosen ones don't waste energy trying to fix every problem. They identify the root. They don't try to please everyone. They focus on who they are assigned to help. They don't move fast. They move intentionally because they've seen what happens when life is lived on autopilot. Clarity gives them courage. When everyone else is hesitating, they step forward. When others are paralyzed by fear, they discern the next step. Not because the path is easy, but because their vision is clean. They have trained themselves to see through fear, to recognize when something is a test versus a trap, when a delay is protection versus punishment. In Hindu philosophy, this clarity is called viveka, the power of right discrimination. It is the sacred ability to distinguish between the real and the unreal, the eternal and the temporary, the essential and the superficial. And this is precisely what the chosen ones cultivate in their alone time. Every layer of illusion is peeled away. Every false identity is stripped, until only truth remains. Clarity also transforms their communication. They no longer speak just to fill silence. Their words are deliberate, weighted, carried with intention, because they've sat long enough with truth to know how powerful it is when spoken clearly. And people feel it. When a chosen one speaks, there is an unmistakable energy of vibration that says, "This person knows." This can intimidate others. Some will be drawn to it. Others will resent it. Because clarity exposes confusion. And people who profit from confusion, manipulators, deceivers, attention seekers, do not like to be seen. But the chosen ones don't seek confrontation. They simply can't pretend not to see. Their very presence becomes disruptive to deception. There's a reason many chosen ones are not invited into certain circles. It's not because they aren't good enough. It's because their clarity would make others uncomfortable. It would reveal the games being played, the masks being worn, the hidden agendas. And so, instead of dimming their light, they walk alone, not out of bitterness, but out of devotion to truth. This level of vision also brings an unexpected peace. When you see clearly, you stop striving. You stop comparing. You stop running. You no longer chase what isn't meant for you, because you recognize it instantly. You no longer cling to people or situations that drain you, because their energy speaks louder than their words. Clarity makes life simpler, not easier, but simpler. It strips away the noise. It prioritizes what matters. And this simplicity becomes sacred. In a world obsessed with doing more, the chosen ones become masters of doing less, but with more meaning. They understand that one clear step in the right direction is worth more than 100 frantic ones in the wrong. Clarity also deepens their faith. Because when you can see clearly, you realize just how much is invisible. You begin to trust that some things are unfolding beyond your comprehension. You surrender, not because you've given up, but because you finally understand the divine choreography behind your life. And that trust becomes a superpower all its own. The ancient Hermeticists believed in the principle of as above, so below, that what is true in the heavens is mirrored on earth. Hyper-clarity allows the chosen ones to recognize those mirrors. They see how the patterns in their personal life reflect cosmic truths. They read symbols in dreams, in numbers, in nature. Everything becomes a message. Everything speaks. This clarity doesn't make them arrogant. It makes them reverent. They know that to see clearly is a responsibility. That vision without humility is blindness in disguise. So they stay grounded. They return often to solitude. Not because they're antisocial, but because clarity must be maintained like a flame tended, protected, and fed with silence. So if you, dear listener, have been feeling the pull to withdraw, to go silent, to simplify, do not resist it. The world may call it laziness. Friends may misunderstand. But the Spirit knows. You are being called to the mountain. You are being invited to the inner sanctum. Because what is coming next in your life requires a clarity you have not yet experienced. Let go of the noise. Turn off the distractions. Return to the altar of silence and wait. Not passively, but expectantly, with open hands and an open heart. Because in that sacred stillness, your next instructions will arrive. Not from outside, but from within. You are not lost. You are aligning. You are not confused. You are being cleansed. And soon, you will see with the kind of clarity that makes the impossible obvious. This, beloved, is your third superpower, and it will guide you to everything you were born for. Pain has a sound, you know. It may not always come in screams or tears. It sometimes lives in silence, in the way someone avoids eye contact, in the wait behind a forced smile. The world often misses it, but the chosen ones do not. They hear it. They feel it. They know its language. And that's why the fourth superpower is so rare, so heavy, and yet so divine, the pain sensor. This isn't just empathy. It's deeper than that. Empathy allows you to understand someone's emotions. But the pain sensor of the chosen ones does more. It makes them feel those emotions as if they were their own. It's a soul-level connection that bridges the invisible distance between one heart and another. And it's born not from comfort, but from suffering. You don't learn to feel others until you've been broken yourself. True sensitivity does not come from softness. It comes from surviving storms. The chosen ones develop this ability in solitude, when they are forced to confront every wound, every scar, every disappointment, without distraction. And in that sacred confrontation, something alchemical begins to happen. Their pain becomes a portal not just into their own soul, but into the souls of others. Let me tell you something they won't teach in school. Pain refines perception. It sharpens the senses. It opens spiritual receptors that were previously dormant. And once activated, these receptors begin to tune into others, picking up grief, fear, insecurity, not through words, but through energetic frequency. The chosen ones walk into a room and immediately feel the weight hanging in the air. They sit beside someone and absorb what that person is hiding, not intentionally, not invasively, but instinctively. This is not always a comfortable gift. In fact, for many chosen ones, it can feel like a burden at first. They wonder why they feel exhausted after being around certain people, why they cry without reason, why they can't enjoy a party or a meeting like others seem to. But over time, they begin to realize it's not their own pain they're always feeling. It's the collective. It's the hidden sorrow of others. It's the unspoken grief of the world. In many ancient cultures, this gift was recognized as sacred. The Celts had the Anamkara, or soul friend, one who could see and feel your inner wounds without judgment. The Native American shamans understood the empathic connection between healer and tribe. They knew that true healing could only happen when the pain of the people was first acknowledged, absorbed, and transmuted by someone strong enough to carry it. The chosen ones are modern echoes of these ancient archetypes. I remember meeting a woman once who had survived immense trauma, abandonment, abuse, betrayal, and yet, when she spoke to others, they felt seen in a way they never had before. She had no formal training. She wasn't a therapist. But she had walked through hell and returned with eyes that could see pain hiding in anyone. And more than that, she could sit with them in it, not trying to fix, not offering cliches, but just being fully present. That's the essence of this superpower. Pain sensor isn't about healing with your hands. It's about healing with your presence. It's about sitting with someone in their darkness and not flinching. It's about holding space so sacred, so safe, that another soul finally feels like it doesn't have to pretend. And you, chosen one, have probably done this more times than you can count, even if you didn't realize it. People are drawn to you. They tell you things they've never told anyone. They cry in your presence and don't know why. They say, "I feel safe with you," or "I feel like you really get me." That's not coincidence. That's your gift at work. Your ability to sense pain, to reflect compassion, to make someone feel seen on a level most have never experienced. But this gift, like all powers, requires wisdom. Because if you're not careful, you can drown in the sorrow you were meant to transmute. That's why solitude is critical. Solitude is where you learn to process what you pick up. It's where you cleanse yourself of energy that isn't yours. It's where you return to your own center so you can show up again clear, grounded, and whole. This is where boundaries become sacred. The pain sensor doesn't mean you have to carry everyone. It doesn't mean you must absorb every cry, fix every brokenness. No, it means you acknowledge it. You honor it. You bear witness to it. But you don't let it take residence inside you. You are not a dumping ground. You are a mirror, a channel, a guide. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply be there. No words, no solutions, just presence, just silence. Just letting someone else's pain exist without being invalidated. That kind of witness is transformative. It heals in ways logic never can. And here's the divine irony. The more you've been hurt, the more powerful this gift becomes. Because your wounds taught you nuance. They taught you to hear what others miss, to see what others hide, to sense what others suppress. Your heartbreak refined your frequency until it could detect the most subtle shifts in another's energy. This is why the chosen ones become counselors, spiritual teachers, healers, artists, poets, not always by title, but by function. Their lives become vessels through which others find healing. Their words, even when unintentional, become medicine. Their art becomes sanctuary. Their silence becomes holy ground. But again, this gift must be honored. You must learn to distinguish between what is yours and what is not, between compassion and codependence, between helping and enabling. Not every pain you sense is yours to fix. Sometimes your only role is to reflect, not rescue, to guide, not carry, to illuminate, not absorb. The chosen ones understand that pain is not always a problem. It is often a path, a messenger, a doorway. And their ability to sense it allows them to walk with others through that doorway into healing. In the Gospels, there is a moment where Jesus approaches a man at the pool of Bethesda. The man has been sick for 38 years, lying near the healing waters but never entering. Jesus asks him, "Do you want to be healed?" Not because he didn't know, but because pain must be met with permission. This is the wisdom of the pain sensor. You may see someone's wound. You may feel their suffering. But you must never override their journey. You offer presence. You offer insight. But they must choose healing. And when they do, when they say yes, your gift activates in full. You become a mirror in which they finally see their true self. You become a voice that reminds them of their strength. You become a witness that makes their journey sacred. Pain sensor is not flashy. It won't get you 1,000,000 followers. It won't be applauded by the world. But in the spirit realm, it is precious. It is powerful. It is the mark of a soul who has suffered, survived, and decided to turn their scars into sanctuary for others. So if you've ever wondered why you feel so deeply, why you carry so much, why people are drawn to your presence, this is why. You are a sacred listener, a spiritual antenna, a healer hidden in plain sight. And as long as you honor your own healing, stay grounded in solitude, and maintain boundaries that protect your energy, this superpower will not overwhelm you. It will empower you. It will guide you. Because the world is full of pain, but the chosen are full of presence, and your presence is the beginning of someone else's restoration. This, beloved, is your fourth superpower, and the world has never needed it more than now. Most people treat time as an enemy. They run from it, try to outsmart it, waste it, kill it. But the chosen ones, those who have been called into divine solitude, do something radically different. They don't fear time. They alchemize it. They take what the world calls empty hours and turn them into sacred rituals, spiritual laboratories, and inner sanctuaries. This is the fifth superpower, the time alchemist. To understand this gift, you must first understand the sacred chemistry of stillness. In solitude, time slows, it stretches, it reveals. What once seemed like dead space becomes living soil. The chosen ones learn that loneliness is not a void, it is a container, a womb. And in that container, they plant the seeds of greatness, while others are addicted to stimulation, to distraction, to the frantic pace of the world. The chosen begin to value the pause. They embrace it. They learn to sit with themselves, not just tolerate their own company, but delight in it. They turn silence into symphony, repetition into revelation, and boredom into breakthrough. This transformation doesn't happen by accident. It is intentional. It is a discipline. It begins with the uncomfortable moments, the quiet evenings when no one calls, the mornings when your calendar is empty, the weekends spent not in crowds, but in reflection. At first, these moments sting. They echo with absence. But over time, the chosen ones begin to hear something else. In the silence, the voice of their soul. And that voice has much to say. It begins with questions: who am I? Why am I here? What is this season of my life trying to teach me? These questions don't get answered in noise. They require space. They require time. And as the chosen ones stay present with these questions, they start to shift. Instead of fearing the passage of time, they honor it. They see that every second carries sacred potential, that every hour alone is an opportunity for divine download. The ancients understood this. In Hermetic alchemy, there was a principle: solve et coagula, dissolve and recombine. It's the process of breaking something down to its essence and then transforming it into something new. That is exactly what solitude offers. The chosen ones dissolve the clutter of the world, strip away the noise, and sit with the raw material of their being. And in doing so, they create something golden. Think of the medieval alchemists who locked themselves away in stone chambers, obsessively working over bubbling flasks, chasing the philosopher's stone. To outsiders, it looked like madness. But to them, it was sacred work, the pursuit of purity, of transmutation, of divine truth. The chosen ones today are no different. Their solitude is not laziness, it is labor, inner labor, soul work. In the stillness of solitude, they write, they pray, they weep, they laugh, they remember, they dream. And slowly, like a potter shaping clay, they mold themselves into vessels worthy of purpose. They don't just wait for transformation, they participate in it. And the most powerful alchemy of all, turning loneliness into joy. Yes, joy. Not just the kind of joy that comes from a happy moment, but the deep, unshakable joy that comes from alignment. From knowing who you are, what you carry, and why you're here. It's a joy that cannot be stolen by circumstance, because it is not rooted in anything external. It is the joy of the soul at peace with itself. This kind of joy is rare. The world chases entertainment, but the chosen discover meaning. The world scrolls for hours to escape itself, but the chosen close their eyes and dive inward. They meditate, they journal, they walk in nature, they talk to God, they listen, and in doing so, they come alive. Time, to them, becomes sacred currency. Not something to burn, but something to bless. Every minute alone is a minute invested, a minute infused with intention, a minute offered to the fire of transformation. And the return on this investment is immeasurable. Wisdom, clarity, peace, direction, power. You see, most people age, but they don't grow. They fill their lives with activities, but never pause to ask why. The chosen ones grow in silence. They become deeper, richer, wiser, because they've made time their ally. And others begin to notice. People say, "You're different. You feel grounded. You have a calm I don't understand." That calm didn't come from books. It came from sacred hours spent in the quiet furnace of solitude. It came from refusing to rush, from choosing depth over speed, from walking the long road with God instead of sprinting down the shortcuts of man. The time alchemist isn't obsessed with doing more, they're devoted to doing what matters. They don't fill their schedule to feel valuable. They find value in empty space. They understand that their energy is a resource, and they treat it with reverence. They prioritize soul over schedule, and because of this, their days begin to take on a sacred rhythm. They wake with intention. They move with awareness. They rest without guilt. They let go without fear. They are not controlled by the ticking clock because they have stepped outside of the rat race. They live by a higher time. The mystics of every tradition spoke of this. In Greek, there are two words for time: chronos, measured time, and kairos, divine time. The chosen ones learn to live in kairos. They recognize divine appointments, sacred pauses, prophetic delays. They don't panic when plans shift because they trust the timing of something greater than themselves. Living as a time alchemist also means recognizing seasons. Not every moment is for action. Some are for healing, some are for preparation, some are for resting. The world might demand constant output, but the chosen ones listen to the rhythm of their own spirit. And in doing so, they produce fruit that lasts. I once heard a monk say, "There is no wasted time in God." That truth lives inside the chosen. They know that even their waiting seasons are working seasons. Even their quiet moments are building foundations. Even their so-called delays are divine alignments in disguise. So if you find yourself alone, in a season of pause, do not curse the quiet. Do not fill the space just to avoid the stillness. Embrace it, honor it. Ask it what it has to teach you. Light a candle. Write your thoughts. Sit in nature. Let time be your teacher. Because the chosen ones don't waste time, they transform it. And through that transformation, they become who they were always meant to be. This, beloved, is your fifth superpower. You are not wasting time. You are becoming timeless. Most people spend their lives running from mirrors. Not the glass ones, but the soul mirrors. The moments, the people, the experiences that reflect back to them what they'd rather not see. But the chosen ones, they are the mirrors. They are the sacred surfaces upon which others glimpse their truest selves. This is the sixth superpower. One few speak of, and even fewer can hold the soul mirror. To be a soul mirror is not a decision. It is a destiny. It is a consequence of the deep work the chosen ones have done in solitude. For you cannot reflect what you have not faced. And the chosen have faced everything. They've walked the long, lonely road inward. They've stared down their fears, their flaws, their patterns, and their pain not to judge, but to understand. And in doing so, they've cleared the fog that blinds most people from seeing. You see, most humans live in projection. They wear masks, not out of malice, but out of fear. They reflect back to the world what they think it wants to see. But chosen ones have shattered those masks. They've stripped themselves down to the raw material of the soul. And now, simply by existing, they reflect truth, not opinion, not agenda. Truth. This truth-telling doesn't happen with words. It happens with presence. The chosen ones carry an energy, a frequency, a light that illuminates whatever is placed before it. Like the sun rising over a still lake, their presence reveals what was hidden. People may come near them expecting comfort and find confrontation not from harshness, but from reflection. They begin to see themselves clearly, maybe for the first time, and that can be terrifying. This is why, if you are a chosen one, some people love you instantly and others flee. Not because you did anything wrong, but because they weren't ready to see themselves. Your very existence brings unspoken truth to the surface. Your silence speaks louder than their denial. Your stillness makes their chaos visible. And that's power, but it is a quiet power, a sacred power. It doesn't seek attention. It doesn't force change. It simply reveals what is. And in the spiritual realm, revelation is everything. For without awareness, there can be no healing. Without recognition, there can be no redemption. The chosen ones carry this power, not to judge, but to awaken. I remember sitting across from a young man once who had spent years hiding behind charm, success, and achievement. But in our conversation, I said very little. I just listened, fully. And within minutes, he began to cry. Not because of anything I said, but because, in the reflection of my stillness, he saw how exhausted he was from performing. He saw his truth, and in that mirror, he found permission to drop the act. That is what soul mirrors do. They don't tell people who they are, they help people remember. They don't impose truth, they reveal it. They don't diagnose, they reflect. And that reflection, when offered with love and without judgment, becomes medicine. But this gift must be held with care. For when people look into a soul mirror, they may not like what they see. Some will lash out, some will project. Some will accuse you of being too intense, too deep, too much. Not because you are wrong, but because they are afraid. They mistake your clarity for criticism, your presence for pressure, your light for judgment. This is why the chosen ones often walk alone. Their ability to reflect truth isolates them. They don't fit into shallow spaces. They disrupt dysfunction without trying. They make liars nervous and pretenders uncomfortable. Not because they want to, but because they can't help but be who they are. But take heart, your reflection is not a curse. It is a calling. And the right people will recognize it. They will not just tolerate your depth, they will crave it. Because in a world full of distortion, your mirror is a rare treasure. It is clear. It is clean. It is holy. And here's the paradox: the more transparent you become, the more powerful your reflection. This is why the work of solitude is never done. The chosen ones must continually return to themselves. They must polish their own mirror, clear their own fog, confront their own ego. For the clearer they become inside, the more clearly they reflect others. This is not narcissism. It's devotion. It's humility. It's the sacred responsibility of the mirror to stay honest, to stay clean, to stay true. The soul mirror also activates prophetic insight. When you reflect someone's essence back to them, you don't just see who they are, you glimpse who they could be. You see the divine blueprint beneath the layers of trauma and performance. And sometimes, all it takes is one sentence, one gaze, one moment of presence to awaken that blueprint. In the Bible, we see this when Jesus calls Simon Peter. He didn't just see who Simon was, he saw who he would become: a rock, a foundation, a leader. That is the mirror in action, not just showing someone their reflection, but showing them their potential. This gift is revolutionary. It defies every lie the world tells. The world says you are your past, your pain, your failures. But the chosen ones reflect the truth: you are your purpose, your essence, your divine design. And when someone sees that in your mirror, they can never unsee it. But be prepared, this power will cost you. Not everyone wants to be seen. Some people prefer the comfort of their illusions. Some relationships will crumble as your mirror gets clearer. Some doors will close. But do not grieve them. Those who walk away are not rejecting you. They are rejecting what you reflect. And that is not your burden to carry. Your role is not to convince people to see. It is to remain clear, to continue the inner work, to be available when the soul is ready. And when it is, your mirror will be a sanctuary, a sacred place where truth meets grace. The world needs more soul mirrors, not gurus, not influencers, not performers, mirrors, quiet, steady, grounded people who have done their inner work and can hold space for others to do theirs. People who do not flinch at pain, who do not rush to fix, who simply reflect clearly, lovingly, and without distortion. This is your sixth superpower. It may not sparkle, it may not shout, but in a world that has forgotten itself, your mirror is a miracle. So keep reflecting, keep revealing, and remember, sometimes the greatest healing you will offer is simply being who you are. For in your clarity, others will find their own. There are voices that do not speak in words, messages that do not arrive by mail or text, truths that are not taught in classrooms or spoken from stages. These are the whispers of the unseen, the silent symphonies of the spirit world, and the sacred transmissions of realms beyond the veil. For most, these whispers are inaudible, lost in the static of modern life. But for the chosen ones, those trained in solitude, these whispers become songs. This is the seventh superpower, the astral whisper. Let us not misunderstand. This is not about hearing literal voices in the air. It is about the awakening of spiritual receptors, subtle, refined channels of perception that come alive only when the world goes quiet. The astral whisper is what happens when your spirit becomes still enough to detect what the mind alone cannot comprehend. It is divine intuition taken to its highest frequency. It is the art of spiritual listening. The chosen ones develop this ability in the womb of isolation. In the long hours of silence, when all outer noise has faded, the inner senses begin to bloom. These are not just instincts, they are transmissions, downloads, nudges from the divine. They arrive as sudden clarity, prophetic dreams, recurring symbols, synchronicities that defy explanation, or an unshakable inner knowing that arrives before the facts do. And if you're honest with yourself, you've felt it. That nudge to leave a situation before it crumbled. That inexplicable urge to reach out to someone at the perfect time. That dream that showed you what was coming. That repeated number, animal, or phrase that kept appearing until you finally paused to listen. That wasn't coincidence. That was the astral whisper. You didn't earn it, it was always there. But solitude made it audible. When you pulled away from the noise, when you stopped filling every moment with distractions, when you finally sat in the sacred stillness, something opened. Your spirit came online. Your soul began to hear in ancient times. These whispers were revered. The oracle of Delphi didn't scream her prophecies. She listened in trance-like stillness, translating divine breath into human language. The Hebrew prophets received messages in caves, deserts, mountaintops, not in marketplaces. The mystics of Islam called it ilham, divine inspiration. The yogis of India called it shabda, the eternal sound. In every tradition, the principle remains only those who quiet the ego can hear the infinite. The astral whisper is not loud. It doesn't compete. It waits. It honors free will. It respects your pace. But the moment you make room for it, the messages begin to flow. This is why the chosen ones are often misunderstood. They make decisions that defy logic. They walk away from what looks perfect. They stay when others are fleeing. They sense storms before clouds form. Because they are not moving by sight, they are moving by sound. And the sound they follow is not of this world. To the untrained eye, it looks like luck. To the skeptic, it's superstition. But to the chosen, It is guidance. It is alignment. It is the breath of God whispering, this way. And this whisper is not always comfortable. Sometimes it leads into wilderness. Sometimes it calls for separation. Sometimes it demands trust when evidence is absent. But those who follow it discover miracles hidden in the mundane. They find divine appointments dressed as delays. They hear purpose inside pain. They learn that the whisper always leads somewhere sacred, even if it travels through shadows. I remember once waking up from a dream that showed me the end of a friendship I was clinging to. There was no conflict yet, no signs. But the message was clear: let go. I resisted, I argued with it, but the whisper didn't waver. And sure enough, months later, the truth unraveled exactly as I had seen it. The whisper had prepared me not to prevent the pain, but to cushion the fall. This is the grace of the astral whisper. It does not erase hardship, it makes you ready. It gives you eyes to see behind the curtain, ears to hear the voice behind the voice, and a heart that can discern the sacred in the strange. And it is not always mystical. Sometimes the whisper comes through art, a line in a book, a lyric in a song, a phrase on a billboard. Sometimes it's a sudden stillness that falls over your spirit when you're about to say yes to something that isn't meant for you. Sometimes it's an ache, a tug, a holy hesitation. The form doesn't matter. The feeling does. And over time, the chosen ones learn to recognize it like a familiar friend. They stop asking, does this make sense, and start asking, does this resonate? They stop needing approval and start following alignment. They trust the whisper more than the world, because the whisper has never lied. This is why solitude is not optional for the chosen. It is their sanctuary. Their sanctuary is their satellite dish. Without stillness, the signal gets scrambled. The whisper gets drowned. But with stillness repeated, sacred stillness, the whisper grows clearer, more constant, more powerful, and it begins to speak not only to them, but through them. This is when the chosen ones become conduits, messengers, translators of the invisible. They speak words that heal, that awaken, that disrupt illusions, not because they study them, but because they receive them. And people feel it. The room shifts when they speak. Hearts open, tears fall, chains break, not by volume, but by vibration. The astral whisper is not about being special. It's about being surrendered. It's about tuning yourself like an instrument and allowing the divine to play through you. It requires humility, patience, and practice. And above all, it requires trust. Trust that what you sense is real. Trust that what you feel matters. Trust that what you hear is meant for you. But here's the sacred truth: the more you trust it, the louder it gets, the more you follow it, the clearer the path becomes. And soon, what once felt like a whisper becomes a conversation, a flow, a rhythm, a communion. This is the inheritance of the chosen ones. To walk not by sight, but by spirit. To live not by reaction, but by revelation. To move through life like a symphony, listening, flowing, harmonizing with a sound that only the still can hear. So if the world tells you you're too quiet, too sensitive, too intuitive, smile. They do not understand the language you are fluent in. You hear what others miss. You follow what others doubt. You are guided by a sound that only the soul can hear. This, beloved, is your seventh superpower. You are not imagining it. You are receiving it. So keep listening, because the whisper is holy, and it was always meant for you. The world teaches us to manage emotions, suppress them, escape them, or at best, cope with them. But the chosen ones, they do something else entirely. They transform them, like spiritual alchemists. They take the raw material of human feeling grief, rage, loneliness, longing, and transmute it into gold. This is the 8th superpower. One forged not through avoidance, but through deep emotional immersion. The emotional transmuter. It begins, as all true transformation does, in solitude. Because only in solitude are emotions given enough space to rise. Only in stillness are they allowed to speak without interruption. And the chosen ones, unlike most, do not silence them. They listen, they honor, they allow. This is not the path of comfort. It is the path of courage. It is the way of the soul warrior who chooses to sit with sorrow rather than flee it, who makes a temple out of pain, who treats every emotional wave not as an enemy to be battled, but as a message to be deciphered. To transmute emotion is to do holy work. It is the art of turning anger into fuel for justice, turning grief into empathy, turning fear into discernment, turning longing into vision. This work doesn't just change the chosen one, it changes everyone around them. But how is this done? It begins with presence. Full, undivided, non-judgmental presence. The chosen one does not label emotions as good or bad. They see them as sacred signals, as invitations into deeper layers of self. And so, when sadness comes, they don't numb it. They sit with it. They ask it, "What do you want me to know?" And sadness responds not with logic, but with revelation. This inner dialogue is subtle. It's not a performance. It's not for show. It's sacred. It's private. But its effects ripple outward. Because the chosen one who learns to transmute emotion becomes an energetic anchor, while others are swept away by waves of feeling. They remain grounded. They become safe spaces not just for themselves, but for others. Their presence says, "It's okay to feel. I've been there. I'm still standing." In the ancient traditions, this work was known by many names. In Hermeticism, it was transmutation, changing the lead of the lower self into the gold of higher consciousness. In Sufism, it was the polishing of the heart, removing the rust of pain to reveal the mirror of divine love. In Buddhist practice, it is known as transforming poison into medicine. The chosen ones, whether they realize it or not, are walking these sacred paths, and the key ingredient is willingness. You see, most people resist emotions because they fear drowning. But the chosen ones have learned how to swim in emotional waters. Not because they are immune to pain, but because they have made peace with its presence. They no longer panic when the wave comes. They breathe. They float. They learn. This doesn't mean they never break. It means they break open, not down. They let their cracks become places where light pours in. They use their emotional pain as raw material for healing, for creativity, for compassion. Think of the artists, poets, mystics, and prophets throughout history, those whose pain gave birth to beauty. Rumi, whose heartbreak became timeless poetry. David, whose psalms echo with raw human emotion. Frida Kahlo, whose art painted her inner agony. These were emotional transmuters. Their suffering became sacred. Their wounds became wisdom. Their tears watered gardens that would feed generations. And today, yes, you carry this same power. You may not paint or write. You may not sing or sculpt. But your life is art. Your healing is a masterpiece. Your transformation is a testimony. Every time you choose to feel instead of flee, to create instead of collapse, to breathe instead of break, you are transmuting. You are rewriting the story. You are alchemizing pain into purpose. This is not passive. It is sacred labor. It requires self-awareness. It requires spiritual tools, breathwork, prayer, journaling, movement, silence. It requires sacred time alone, and it requires trust. Trust that what you are feeling has meaning. Trust that it is taking you somewhere holy. Trust that you will emerge wiser, softer, stronger. I remember a season when grief hit me like a tidal wave. I had lost someone dear. The world expected me to move on, to stay strong, but something in me refused. I sat with it. Day after day, I cried, I wrote, I walked in silence, I let grief speak. And over time, something shifted. My pain became a doorway. I began to understand the fragility of life, the preciousness of presence, the gift of now. That season of pain became the foundation of my deepest compassion. That is transmutation. That is the superpower of the chosen ones. It's not about being unaffected. It's about being transformed. And here's the beauty. The more you transmute your own emotions, the more you become a catalyst for others. You'll notice that people open up around you. They cry, they confess, they heal often without knowing why. It's because your energy says, you are safe, you are seen, you are held. You don't have to fix them, you just have to be real. The emotional transmuter doesn't offer answers, they offer presence. They model wholeness. They show others what's possible. That feeling deeply does not mean weakness. That healing is not linear. That emotions are not problems, they're portals. So if you've ever been told you're too sensitive, too emotional, too intense, remember. Those are just the words of people who've never learned to transmute. Your depth is your power. Your tears are your teachers. Your ability to feel is not a flaw, it's a flame. And it burns away illusion. It lights the path home. This is why the chosen ones must protect their space. Their solitude is their forge. Their emotional process is their sacred ritual. They cannot afford to numb, to rush, to pretend. They must feel it all, because feeling is how they channel. Feeling is how they heal. Feeling is how they change the world, one transmuted emotion at a time. So the next time you find yourself overwhelmed with feeling, do not curse it. Bless it. Sit with it. Listen to it. And ask, what can I make from this? Because you, beloved, are not just a feeler. You are a forger. You are a transformer. You are a living, breathing, walking flame of sacred emotional alchemy. This is your 8th superpower. The world avoids emotion, but you turn it into light. There is a hidden code that governs the universe, not made of numbers, but of vibrations, not written in ink, but pulsing in energy. Everything, every thought, emotion, word, and action emits a frequency. And the chosen ones, those who have walked through fire and silence, develop a sacred gift that they become frequency tuners. This is the 9th superpower, one that allows them to shift energy, harmonize with truth, and attract realities aligned with their highest calling. To the average person, reality seems random. Life appears to be a series of accidents, opportunities, and misfortunes. But the chosen know better. They have learned, often the hard way, that the outer world mirrors the inner world. That energy is not just felt, it is formative. That your frequency is your invitation, your signature, your song. And this understanding is not conceptual, it is embodied. Because the chosen have spent so much time alone, disconnected from the noise of external validation. They've developed sensitivity to the subtle. They can feel the shift when a thought lowers their vibration. They notice how certain environments drain their spirit. They recognize when a conversation expands them or contracts them. And they learn to adjust. Not reactively, but intentionally, like master musicians tuning their instruments. They tune their soul. This is not about fake positivity. It's not about pretending everything is fine. It's about resonance, authenticity, alignment. Frequency tuning is not escaping pain. It's learning how to carry it without letting it distort your energy. It's choosing thoughts that reflect truth, emotions that reflect integrity, actions that reflect purpose. In ancient teachings, this principle was understood deeply. In the Vedas, sound was seen as the origin of creation, Om, the primordial vibration. In Kabbalah, Hebrew letters weren't just symbols, they were vibratory keys to creation. In Christian mysticism, the word became flesh, vibration became reality. Every sacred tradition acknowledges it. Vibration is not decoration, it is the foundation. So when the chosen one learns to tune their frequency, they are not performing magic. They are aligning with divine law. And this alignment changes everything. Relationships shift. Doors open. Inspiration flows. But more importantly, inner peace becomes unshakable. Because frequency tuning isn't about manipulating outcomes. It's about becoming immovable in your essence. It's about holding your energy steady no matter what chaos swirls outside. I once sat in silence for 40 days, not in a cave, but in my own home. I spoke only when needed. I consumed no media. I journaled, prayed, meditated, and by the end of those 40 days, something extraordinary happened. I could feel the vibration of a person's intent the moment they entered the room. I could tell when a message carried truth or manipulation. I could adjust my breath and instantly shift my mood. That's what solitude does. It refines your spiritual antenna. The chosen ones begin to live by this tuning. They create rituals that regulate their energy. They listen to music that elevates. They surround themselves with nature. They cleanse their space. They speak words that resonate on high frequencies: gratitude, forgiveness, vision. They become mindful of their thoughts, not out of fear, but out of reverence. Because they know what you think. You emit. What you emit, you attract. And this isn't just spiritual theory, it's quantum truth. Modern physics confirms what the mystics always knew. Energy is information. It responds to intention. Your heart emits a measurable electromagnetic field. Your brain resonates with frequencies. Your words carry vibration. Everything is vibration. So the chosen ones make it their mission to become intentional vibrational beings, to emit the frequency of the reality they are calling in. If they desire peace, they choose thoughts of peace. If they desire abundance, they align with generosity. If they desire love, they become love not sentimentally, but energetically. And as they tune themselves, the world begins to shift. Opportunities arise that match their new frequency. People exit who can no longer resonate. paths unfold that were once invisible. This is not coincidence, it's coherence. But here's the deeper truth. The frequency tuner doesn't just adjust themselves. They adjust rooms. They adjust environments. They walk into chaos and bring calm. They enter fear-filled spaces and emit courage. Their presence is an instrument of harmony. Their aura becomes medicine. People feel it, even if they don't understand it. They say, "You have a good vibe. I feel better around you. You have a peaceful energy." That's not just personality, it's frequency. It's the invisible resonance of a soul in tune. But let's not romanticize this gift. Frequency tuning requires maintenance. It requires solitude, stillness, self-honesty. The chosen ones must constantly clear their field through prayer, breathwork, fasting, nature, creativity, service. They must discern what is theirs to carry and what is static from the world. Because when you're highly sensitive to energy, you can easily absorb what isn't yours. That's why the frequency tuner becomes a master of boundaries. They guard their energy like a sacred flame. They do not apologize for protecting their peace. They do not explain why they no longer tolerate gossip, drama, or dissonance. They've learned if you want to live in harmony, you must leave the noise behind. This doesn't mean they never struggle. But when they do, they recalibrate quickly. They don't stay in low frequencies. They don't marinate in self-pity or resentment. They observe the dip. They learn from it. And they rise. This rising is what makes them magnetic. Others look at their lives and wonder, how do they stay so grounded, so radiant, so clear? The answer is tuning. Daily, quietly, devotedly. They've learned the secret: you don't get the life you want, you get the life that matches your frequency. So they choose their vibration like a sacred garment. They wear joy. They radiate purpose. They embody peace, and the universe responds. Because the universe is not listening to your words, it's responding to your signal. So if you've been feeling the nudge to declutter your mind, detox your soul, unplug from low energies, follow it. That's the call to tune. That's the spirit saying, it's time to vibrate higher. You don't need to fix everything. You just need to align. You don't need to force outcomes. You just need to match them. And you don't need to be anyone else. You just need to be in tune with who you truly are. This is your 9th superpower. You are a frequency tuner. You are not at the mercy of energy. You are the master of it. And your vibration is the invitation.